Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio as well, as we are here to discuss the Calgary Flames draft options here, as the draft is on Friday, the 27th. So as of this live recording, we're 5 days away from the NHL draft. Kind of hard to believe we're getting over there, but we're going to discuss some of the Flames options going forward here. There's lots to discuss, not only who they pick, but this year it's an interesting option of where they pick. They have 2 for picks in the first round. And so we'll kind of go into what they do there, because there's been just some discussion that they could either A, move up, or B, move down. So we'll get into that. Joining me is Matt Duborg from Fireside Chat, Dan's trusty co-host of Fireside Chat. Dan, how are you? Or Dan, Matt, how are you doing?
Very happy with the Panthers win, and looking forward to the draft.
Yeah. This is we'll get to the Panthers in a second, but this is an interesting draft because a lot of the focus, I think this is one of those years where people are looking more forward to next year's draft than this year's draft in terms of the quality of the players. But again, you never know what could happen when you pick. So I think it's going to be interesting for that. But let's start. I discussed more with Dan the Edmonton Oilers against the Panthers for the Stanley Cup final. We'll touch on the Oilers here in a second, but the Florida Panthers are now, and you're a follower of the Florida Panthers as well, 2-time Stanley Cup champions. This year was one of the more dominant runs of Stanley Cup history. They really, right off the bat, they took out Tampa right away, scored within the first 5 minutes against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and it was Matthew Tkachuk that comes out of the infirmary onto the ice and scores. Tampa didn't really have a chance. Toronto was up. People forget this. Toronto was up 2-0 in the series, 2-0 in game 3 after the first period, and ended up losing that series. We all will remember that the Edmonton Oilers were down 2-0, and it was down to either the challenge or the puck flip against the Kings. But the Florida Panthers were in the same boat, and they were down, and then steamrolled their way through the Leafs, steamrolled their way through the Hurricanes, and ultimately, I know the series went 6 here, Matt. The first 2 games were absolutely phenomenal, but you could argue that this could have been a 4 or 5 game series, the way that the Panthers ended up really taking over this series starting game 3.
Well, and especially after last year, kind of letting the Oilers creep back into the series, I feel that they did not want to give the Oilers even an inch of breathing room once they got up 3-2. They just walked all over them to win the cup in Florida again.
Yeah, it's one of the narratives. I guess one of the narratives that is becoming clear here from I'm seeing from the Oilers fans is the difference was goaltending, and I think that's true. Actually, I do agree with them, but I don't think it was the only difference. I just think that Florida this year, their bottom 6, like you go back, I even go back to the Toronto series and all of the complaining about Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews and John Tavares. Mitch Marner had as many points in this series as Matthew Tkachuk did. What ultimately happened is the Panthers were able to just wear the Leafs down on all phases of the game, and especially with their depth, that Lundell, Listerinen, Brad Marchand line ended up kind of just taking over a lot of games from a bottom 6 perspective, and they didn't get a lot of offense from their top 6. I mean, Sam Bennett, 13 goals. That's true, but Brad Marchand was second with 10. Matthew Tkachuk was playing with a pretty serious injury, and Barkov ended up cutting his hand in game 1 of the final. So I think the bottom 6, I think their blue line was outstanding. They're not getting enough credit. I mean, the Ekblad and Forsling, Seth Jones was the underrated move of this trade deadline, with the best move being Brad Marchand.
Yeah.
But they were able to have six defensemen. They had rolled out that fourth line when they needed to, in terms of Greer and Gadjevich and Thomas Nosek, who was another trade deadline acquisition, by the way. People forgot about that one. They submitted their will, and the Oilers really did not have an answer for it in any way, shape, or form.
No, and the Panthers basically took the lessons from last year of how to be a meat grinder, and then kicked it up to 11. And, getting Jones and Marchand specifically just added the cherry on top of the fun rat patrol that they already had going. And, there was no team that I think could have beat the Panthers from the West. Florida, just to a man, everybody was pulling in the same direction, and you don't see too many teams that are able to actually overcome a team that is pulling that hard in the same direction. The only times that happen is if the losing team ends up having a severe talent gap, like Calgary in 2004, where we were pulling it all in the same direction, but talent wise we did not match up with any of the teams that they played.
No.
But if your talent level's even close to being even or better, you're just going to steamroll anybody, and the Panthers did. They were not the best team in the East this year. They were third in their division, but you would think that they were even better than they were last year after winning the President's Trophy.
Yeah. Oh, did they win the
Oh, no, they didn't. No, they won the division, pardon me. Not the President's Trophy.
Yeah.
That was the Rangers. My bad.
Yeah, but still, they walked into New York and decimated them. If it wasn't for Shesterkin, that might have ended quickly too. So they are the standard of the National Hockey League right now, and they know it the way that they're making the comments. A lot of those comments coming out of social media. I guess say what you will about them. They are embracing who they are. And Matt, I'm going to toss this out there. I don't think they're going for 3. I don't think they're going for 4. I think they're going for 5.
Yeah, I could see it. And, I think Ekblad is going to take a haircut to stay. I think Marchand's going to take a haircut to stay. I think Bennett's going to take a haircut to stay. Yeah. Because, when you have that kind of magic on a team, and you have the money and resources to actually keep the group together, there is no sense not running that back. No. And, they're just going to wreak havoc on everybody, regardless.
Yeah. From a wrestling perspective, we're in the bloodline era, and I think fans are wanting Connor McDavid as Cody Rhodes, and they want him to finish his story. But let's before we get to the Oilers, can we discuss the state tax thing? Because I believe firmly and strongly that this state tax thing is ultimately a myth. The Panthers have been a team without a state tax since they've been in the inception of the league, and they had they won one series from 1996 to 2022 with this state tax.
And they've been hot garbage since I've been a fan of them in 96. They've been horrendous, and they could not attract anything other than flies. The team was garbage for 15, 20 years, and then just okay for little parts here and there, when they had Pavel Bure, but they're just not very good up until now. And how would you say, to me, winning breeds loyalty and players wanting to take a discount to stay. And you don't see say Seattle, who also does not have a state tax, being able to attract anybody really, unless they overpay. And if teams get good, players will respond, but you have to actually have a team first. Much like the Oilers, like they couldn't do anything for almost as long as Florida could. But until they managed to get McDavid and Draisaitl, like they couldn't attract a free agent to save their life either.
Yeah. It's Nashville, by the way, people forget, is a state tax and finished 30th in the league right this year. And they did attract players too. They attracted Stamkos, Marshall. So they spent the most money in free agency, and it ended up not being, quite
Doing
frankly,
anything.
what a lot of people thought the Flames would be.
Mm-hmm.
So, as far as the Oilers, the Connor McDavid comments, I call it the "that being said" heard around the world. I said this to Dan, Matt. I think that this was a push for management. I mean, yes, they've had success. Like Bob Stauffer tweeted the stat: the Oilers have won 9 series since 2022, and the Flames have won 6 and 35. He forgot to mention this, so I just like to remind everybody: since they went to the final in 2006 to 2022, they won 1 playoff series, and they had 4 top number 1 picks, and I think I'll look this up here, but I believe it was 4 other top 10 picks as well, which includes Leon Draisaitl, Darnell Nurse, Philip Broberg, who they let walk, Jesse Puljujarvi, Magnus Puljujarvi, Evan Bouchard, as well as a top 10 pick. They've had their chances.
Well, you look at like Chicago when they won all those Stanley Cups, they had fewer picks than Edmonton did in the good zone. And you look at Pittsburgh, they didn't have that. Like they had a few top end picks, like they got Fleury, Crosby, Malkin, Ryan Whitney in the top 5, but they also won 3 Stanley Cups. And the Oilers, frankly, as a team, even like right now, if you take Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid out, and Jonathan Huberdeau and Nazem Kadri out, I take the Flames, the rest of their lineup, over the Oilers' rest of their lineup. And like the Oilers' lineup is not very good, and like it's not really a surprise that they lost. Like they have no depth. There is nobody that's scary besides those 2, and if you can keep them off the board or contain the amount of damage they do, like the Oilers can't win. And like the Panthers just shut those 2 guys right down, and they lift the cup.
Why did the Oilers get to the final?
Well, Vegas is terrible, for one. They're kind of hitting that age limit where, much like how Boston was good for the longest time, and like this year, like they fell off the cliff. The cliff for Vegas is imminently coming. LA messed it up due to bad coaching. They should have been up 3-0 in that series, if not for interesting decisions by their coaching staff. The Oilers probably don't even make it out of the first round. And Dallas is kind of a paper tiger. Frankly, I think both Dallas and Winnipeg are paper tigers because they don't have the right mix on their team to get through. They don't have that grit that like a Florida does.
Yeah, I think for Winnipeg, I actually thought Winnipeg for the most part was the better team against Dallas, and
I agree.
Yeah, but Dallas was able to score goals in bunches, and it made them to look a lot better than they actually were. Like you even look back at Game 7 against Colorado.
Like there was a game against Dallas, the last one that the Flames played against them, and like the Flames outshot like the Stars something like 50-18 and lost 5-2. And like the Flames basically were playing in the Stars' end the whole game, and you would think that the Stars were not a playoff team for how badly Calgary was kicking their butt. And so like them, but like anytime they got an opportunity, it was in the back of the net, and they did that to both Colorado and to Winnipeg, but they just kind of ran out of steam in the third round.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of caught up to them there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. The offseason will be interesting for all of the Western Conference teams, all of the Eastern Conference teams. But let's focus on the draft portion of the Calgary Flames. And I think with this conversation, I think we have to bring up the news of Rasmus Andersson, which, according to Elliot Friedman in the latest 32 Thoughts blog, said it sounded like it was it sounded like Rasmus wanted the word used was a fresh start. So there is now, and numbers have been exchanged. According to Frank Saravelli, those numbers are not close, which I don't think we were really surprised. But we're now at the point where it appears, and again, this could totally change. And I'm just going to use that's why I'm using the word appears, that the Rasmus Andersson is on his way out of the Calgary Flames. I guess the question now is when, and we come up to the draft here. I'm not convinced that we see Rasmus Andersson move at the draft. I think that there's some hope here, Matt, and that Rasmus Andersson could possibly move you up in the draft, and I don't see it. I don't see that.
Well, Conroy has an easy sell job to teams. He's a right shot defenseman, which are hard to get generally anyway. But he can point to the team that just won and said, you see, Tkachuk and Bennett, this guy grew up on the same team with those guys. He has the same attitude as those guys. He plays the game the same way as those guys. So, if you're looking to kind of emulate what Florida did, do we have a defenseman for you? And, I think that teams that are perhaps wanting to add a little bit of that element to their game, teams that might have some issues with the physical side of the game, say like Dallas, say like Toronto, who could not just get past over that hump against teams, having a guy that does have that feisty, nasty edge to him, while being a good top four defenseman, is certainly appealing. And the problem that Calgary will have is, do they value picks in this draft or subsequent drafts? And do you target center prospects in the trade instead?
Yeah, like the priority position in the organization, and it is center. And yes, they need an elite center, but I would argue would like to add they need centers, period.
Oh, they don't really, frankly, they don't have many, if any at all, like that are profiling to be NHLers. And, you need a Michael Backlund just as much as you need, like a Sean Monahan type guy. Like, you need everybody through the lineup, and the Flames have exactly zero of any of those. So, like, they're trying to shoehorn Honzig and Zari into center roles that they're not really good at. And Pospisil this past season, and he was absolutely dreadful in the center ice position. Just trying to find anybody that can actually play down the middle. And like, the Flames desperately need to find somebody to actually play center in the organization. And if that means trading from a strength like dealing Andersson to get some center depth, center prospects, even a third or fourth line guy that's on a different team, like the Flames need to target moving this asset sooner than later. And realistically, the Flames are very stocked in the defense department. They have both Brustevich and Parekh that are looking to be ready for the NHL next year, along with guys like Soloviev and Kuznetsov and Grushnikov that are also pushing for depth roles on the blue line. So, like, they need to kind of move some surplus people out of the way, so that way the young guys can actually come up and earn jobs as well.
Yeah, I think though, I don't think anybody like the other challenge on this is Rasmus has a 5-team no trade. I'm going to assume Edmonton, most of Edmonton's on it, but I don't see him going to Chicago. I maybe Utah. I mean, if I was Rasmus Andersson, I would look at Seth Jones and go, I was in a non-playoff team situation. My buddies Sam and Matthew just won a couple of cups. I could help them win another cup.
Yeah, and like the Panthers do have a couple of guys like Luosterainen and Lundell. I don't think that you get either one of those necessarily in a 1-for-1 for Anderson, but you could potentially snag that kind of a player. And the one benefit is that Anderson only makes like $4 million this upcoming season. So in terms of both his salary and cap hit, so it's a bargain basement price for the Flames to add that player to whichever team, and the Flames could even eat half of it to further incentivize things if the return's good enough.
Yeah. Is it actually worth it? I mean, I think the discussion of moving up, we have to kind of, in terms of this draft overall, I guess a lot of people are like, well, let's try to get into the top 5. I feel like from 18, that's a pretty big stretch of doing something like that without giving up the 2026 pick, which is the Gavin McKenna draft.
Yeah, like realistically, like you'd have to attach like either Wolf or Perek probably to sniff the top 5, and like it just, for all sorts of reasons, makes zero sense for the Flames to do.
Yeah. So let's start with the top of the draft and kind of go from where the Flames will be getting to when we get to 18 here. If your first pick in this draft, you're the New York Islanders. The New York Islanders have invited you onto their draft table. Who are you picking first?
Honestly, Michael Misa instead of Schaefer. No offense to Schaefer, but like he seems to be good in the way that like Aaron Ekblad is good, where like a serviceable top pairing defenseman, but not otherworldly. And frankly, a top line center is more important to a team than a first pairing defenseman. Like as you can see from the Panthers, like they were able to get several guys that are in the top 4 through other means. So like you don't necessarily have to burn a number 1 overall pick on that. And I would assume that the Islanders do take Schaefer though. But if it was me, I would take Misa.
Okay. Where does Schaefer go on your board?
2.
Okay. So not too far. It's 1, 2. And I imagine that will be the debate of this draft going forward, is who you would pick first and second and redrafts. And so, so there's a couple of other players. Let's go through the couple of players that have been, the Flames are hoping if they move up, these are a couple of players that they want to talk about here or want in Flames colors. The first one is James Hagens. Where are you at? Because I've heard of some really mixed reviews of this man.
He's okay. It's one of those things where the Flames, like yes, Hagens is a center, but he's only 5'11" and like 177 pounds. That's not really overly big for an NHL center. And to me, like anybody sub 6 foot who's a center is going to get transitioned to a winger, and he shoots left. So, adding a left winger to the draft roster basically is one of the things that the Flames do not need. It's kind of the same thing with Ben Kindell. Like he's also very good, but he's also like 5'10", and a lot of the better skill guys like Reschny and Kindell and Hagens, like they're all good, but they're all profiled to be wingers at the NHL level, and it's kind of tough to like when the Flames need centers that can actually stick at center, to have guys that are, as they move up, are going to be transitioned to the wing.
Yeah, on your podcast you didn't talk about Ben Kindell, which I was like, oh wait, that's a hit man. Why you're not talking about him? But
and that was exactly why, because like I basically left off anybody that was too short to be a center at the NHL level, and skill wise, like both him and Hagens would be great picks. It's just that like the difference between, say, like Cootes and those guys is not that far apart. Where a guy that will actually be an NHL center versus an NHL winger, like the Flames need depth down the middle, and it sucks that like those guys aren't like an inch or two taller, but it does make a difference at the NHL level. And like even a guy like Sam Bennett, who's 6 foot, gets by as a center mostly because of his attitude and demeanor on the ice, more than his size. And like unless you have guys that are that intense and tough, like they tend to get bullied a bit, being only 6 foot.
Yeah. The other guy that has been discussed is Roger McQueen from the Brandon Wheat Kings, and of course he's been a bit injury prone. That's been the pro, but there's a lot of people that see him as a pretty big talent, but worried about the injuries. Where are you at with Roger McQueen?
If the Flames had some depth in the prospect pool, I would be all for taking a flyer on him. Because if he figures it out, he would probably have a good middle six center. But if he can't get over the injury bug, like the bust factor is a lot higher with him versus any of the other guys. So like despite his size, like if the Flames are just in a better position up the middle, like they would, it's a lot easier to risk if you have like 2 or 3 guys in the pipeline already. But when you have 0 in the pipeline, you kind of need to get just organizational depth in there as well, and going with a slightly safer pick that a guy that will be an NHL player more than likely, I think makes the most sense at 18.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. And already the problem that the Flames are facing already is they have 2 players that are talented but are injury prone in Connor Zary and Samuel Honzek. So adding Roger McQueen to that is not.
No,
that's not. You can't do it.
No, it's hard enough when you're just trying to plug the holes. Like if you can only expect like 30 to 40, 50 games out of a guy, it's hard to build a team around that type of player.
Yeah. And I really like Connor Zary a lot, but I mean, it's a question with his injuries, unfortunately, is coming up. And I mean, it will affect his contract status.
Oh yeah. Like he probably, like if he wasn't hurt for like all this season and in the past couple of years, he probably gets the same deal that Coronado got.
Yeah.
Give or take, a few bucks, but with his contract coming up, like I don't see any more than like a 3-year, $4 million contract instead of a 7-6 type deal.
Yeah. And Honzek for sure, he had a great camp and then got injured again, so that's frustrating for him too. So hopefully they do get both of them get healthy going forward. But let's go through a couple of these names here that have been either mocked to the Flames or close to the Flames for 18, and then we'll discuss 32. The first one, let's discuss Carter Bear. Tell us about him?
Fairly good all-around offensive player, guy that is good at forechecking, and just a general all-around decent player. Scores quite a bit, good playmaker. The only drawback with him is that his foot speed is a little bit below average, around where Matthew Tkachuk's is currently. maybe slightly faster, but not by much. It's one of those, if he wants to play that energy type game, he needs to be faster. And that could limit him at the NHL level, because if he can't get into places to create that offense, his role is going to be, very diminished overall.
He played with the Everett Silvertips this year, 56 games, 40 goals, 42 assists, 82 points, 77 penalty minutes with a plus 33 with those who care. Now, the other one that has been pretty mocked as well is let's talk about Braeden Cootes, because I've seen him mocked a lot to the Flames too. What about him?
This is the player that I would like the most, because he's basically Connor Zary. For all intents and purposes, they are the same player. And as much as I like Zary, if you can get the same type of player that doesn't have injury concerns, if you have Zary figure out the injury problems and stay healthy, that's great. You have two of the same player, that's not a problem. But you would at least have one of that type of guy. Relentless motor, basically does everything that Zary does. So if you're familiar with him as a player, that's what you're getting.
Okay, and he played with the Seattle Thunderbirds, 60 games, 26 goals, 37 assists, 63 points, 18 penalty minutes, and a +5 with the Seattle Thunderbirds. Another Western Hockey League player. The other one is Cole Reschny. Where are you at with him?
Again, a player that profiles as an NHL winger. He is a very highly skilled player, and if the Flames went that route, much like if they went with either Kindell or Hagens, you're basically getting a Matthew Coronado type player. Not necessarily as good of a shot, but the offensive instincts are there. Probably in all three of their case, you're looking at a second, third line scoring winger. So that's perfectly viable. Not necessarily what the Flames need, but in terms of talent, those three guys are really dynamite.
Yeah, with Reschny, he played with the Victoria Royals last year, and he had 26 goals, 66 assists, 92 points. What's interesting here is Reschny's moving in, from an up-and-coming Victoria Royals team to the University of North Dakota. Does that help his game? Where are you at with that with him?
I don't really have any problem if they're going to I view the junior leagues and the NCAA as fairly comparable. And frankly, the one benefit of the college route is that there is a lot more time during the season to be in the weight room because of the fewer amount of games that they have to play. It's basically on the weekends. It would be good for him specifically. He is not a lower weight player, but for him to fill out that size might make him able to stick at center at the NHL level, but we'll see.
All right. Anyone else in that top 8 that you think that could go for the first pick, the 18th pick for the Flames?
Not really. There are some guys that talent-wise definitely would be out of place picking at 18, and that would be Ivan Ryabkin. But because of all the off-ice stuff, I think that he's going to end up falling probably into the second round. But the Flames, I think, depending on how the draft goes, might be able to trade down a couple of spots to get an additional pick, and still get one of the guys that are on the list. So I think you just kind of have to wait till draft day, I think, to figure out the exact who we're getting. But if they walked away with any of those players, I don't think I would be complaining too much. But a little bit disappointed if they went for basically another winger at the stages that they're at. Like it, like if the scouting reports are saying that the one guy is clearly better, then fine. But if they're basically equal prospects, like they need to get the NHL center instead.
Yeah. It feels like this is a draft. Well, I mean, I think this feels like this is a draft where I think we do end up seeing a little bit more movement than usual, just because I think everybody's draft board, and even Conroy kind of said it too, that everybody's draft board is going to be a little bit different in terms of what they're going to value. I mean, you've got your clear top players, you've got your Schaefers and your Michael Mises as your top two, and then after that, it feels like a little bit of a
jump
most
ball.
People think this is a 10. Yeah, this is a 10-player draft, and then after that, you're kind of rolling the dice a little bit more. So I could see the Flames moving down. And they've done really well, and people don't talk about this enough, but they've done really well in the later rounds, right? It's that hasn't been the issue with the Flames in drafting. It's not been the later rounds. They've had more problems really hitting the early part of the draft than the later part of the draft in their history. I mean, they're certainly improving. Like Connor Zary seems like a possibility. Honzig, we'll see. But, I mean, Zane Parekh, that looks like a good pick, although I don't think he's going to be the best defenseman in that group, in my opinion. But I can see why people are really excited about him. So they're hitting some of those top. Matt Coronado was a hit. I mean, Matthew Tkachuk was a hit. It was a hit here. He ended up being a hit in Florida, and Sam Bennett turned out to be a hit. It just didn't work out here in Calgary.
Yeah, the Flames just basically mismanaged both Tkachuk and Bennett, frankly, which is why they're winning their second cup.
Yeah.
It is what it is, but if you're gonna have your house burnt down, sticking it to your rivals is probably the best way to be able to cope with that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's look at the players that could hit number 32. Let's talk with Ivan Ryabkin, who the talent has certainly been there. A lot of people are really high on his talent, but he's had a lot of attitude issues and other things going on that are leaving a lot of questions. Tell us about him from your perspective.
Well, the on-ice player, he's kind of in that same mold as like the Rasmus Andersson, Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, get in your face a bit and, while being able to contribute offensively. The problem that he has is that he does not get along with, his coaching staff, or, basically his attitude is just not very good. He played on 4 separate teams this year, all 3 levels in the Russian leagues, the KHL, the MHL, and the VHL. Went to the NCAA, the USHL, pardon me. Played very well in all of those levels. It's just attitude is the reason why. Like, he was scoring at a similar level as like Michkov, so like the talent is there, but being able to actually get him to play in your system might be more than a lot of teams are willing to do. If the Flames did roll the dice, because the Flames have had many of this type of player with all of those 3 guys previously, like, they do know how to handle so-called problem children. Like, Andersson was well overweight when they drafted him, and like, conditioning issues were a thing. With Ryabkin, he's like 20 pounds overweight. It could work out. Again, I don't think I would pick him at 32, but if the Flames traded down or he fell to their pick in the second round, sure, why not? But talent-wise, you would be getting like a top 10 player. It's just, can that translate to the NHL? Who knows?
Do you think someone is going to gamble on him before 18?
Honestly, I could see a team like Chicago picking him in the second round if he falls that far. I don't think he goes in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I was thinking is there's a couple of teams that have 3 picks, like the Flyers and the Predators, that I could see that gamble making more sense for them. It doesn't feel like a player that makes sense for the Flames perspective. Again, winger, more of a need a center, kind of a glut at winger right now, especially in the middle 6. And I think with the sort of the wrong word right now, but the best word I could see, the vibes and kind of the culture that the Flames are developing. I don't think they need, although I don't think he will be right in the Flames organization right away. I don't think that they want to have him there. And they already got kind of stung with this already just recently too, with the Tony Lauren pick, right? And then they lost. I mean, it's a mistake, Matt. We can't ignore it. The rookie of the year of the Montreal Canadiens was 3 picks past the Flames. Was it Tony Lauren? Is that his name, right?
Topi Roney.
Topi Roney, pardon me. I'm thinking of someone else. Topi Roney. Lane Hudson was 3 picks past him, and of course they've had a number of issues. There was a number of issues with him, so they've already kind of got themselves shot in the foot. That I would assume that you avoid Ryabkin as much as you possibly can for that reason.
Yeah, it just depends. How, like, if he interviews well with you, you might be able to look past the perceived issues, because sometimes it's just how he interviews with certain teams that rub them the wrong way. Conroy's very good at evaluating guys generally anyway, so if the Flames do select Ryabkin, then it's like, okay, they've done their due diligence and they feel that whatever the concerns are overblown, but we'll see.
Yeah. So that's Ryabkin. He last year played with Muskegon, 27 games. Actually, yeah, 4. So the 4 teams he played with were Dynamo. He played 2 games with them, 8 games with St. Petersburg, 2 assists, and the Lumberjacks in the USHL. He had 19 goals in 27 games and 1 goal back in my Dynamo Junior, and in 12 points in 15 games. The other one that people are talking a little bit about is William Moore. What about William Moore?
He's one of those players that nothing overly stands out, but the guy knows how to get into those high danger scoring chances, and he's very stealthy at it. The player that he reminds me a lot of is Chris Kreider, where you do not notice him, and yet he's standing right in front of the net with a stick ready to go to tap the puck in. And Moore's instincts are of a similar caliber, where he just finds his way into the right areas all the time. And he is just one of those slippery, dangerous players that, his shots might not necessarily, he might not get all of the shot, but because he's in such a good spot, the goalie doesn't have time to react to the pass coming to him. And he basically gets a tap in, and it's over and over. Each time I saw him, it was noticeable that he was always just in the right position at the right time. And with him being over 6 foot, he would profile as a center at the NHL level.
So he played with the U.S. National Development Team last year, 25 games, 10 goals, 11 assists, 21 points. So almost a point-a-game player with a pretty high-level team. Of course, if you've seen a lot of standouts come out of that development team. So in terms of the hockey pedigree, that's an interesting guy. The other interesting guy, I'm personally intrigued by this guy, and I know that he is the son of a former Oiler, but his dad is not with the Oiler organization anymore, so we almost can forgive him. But William Horcoff,
if he's on the board at 32, this is my pick. Honestly, if the Flames traded down and selected Horcoff at say 24, I wouldn't be opposed to that either. depending on what the other pieces that you get. Getting a 6'5" center that profiles as basically a Michael Backlund replacement. Good on both ends of the ice, but just a stalwart defensively. Yes, please. Like the Flames need that type of player in their organization.
And it's more like his offensive numbers: 4 goals, 6 assists, 10 points at the University of Michigan. They're not going to flash at you, but his defensive game is going to flash at you. And like at the
NHL level, like he'll probably get like 30 to 40 points if he transitions properly and develops properly. Like expecting him to be a second line center is not realistic. You're wanting him to basically be Michael Backlund for this team and be the guy that you throw out on the penalty kill. You need a face off late in the game, that kind of thing. And any important situations, park him in front of the net and call it a day.
Yeah. Like Michael Backlund, you think of a guy like Jordan Staal with Carolina. That's kind of reminds you that's the role that Jordan Staal is. He's not an offensive guy. He's a defensive center, and you do need that in the National Hockey League. It would be great to get a Connor McDavid or a Michael Misa. Please don't get me wrong, but these are also elements. I mean, look at Barkov. I mean, the man has the massive talent to be like, if he wanted to, he could be top 5 scorer every year if he was selfish enough to do it. But I still would put him as the at least number 2 or 3 center in this game, based on his defensive abilities and his intelligence.
Yeah, no, and like realistically, because the Flames were basically starting out at 0 for centers. Moving forward, like getting anybody that would actually fill a legitimate role on your NHL team 2, 3, 4 years from now, that is a very important thing. It does not matter if it's your first, second, third, or fourth line center. Like in a lot of ways, it's actually a little bit easier to get your first line center because you just have to suck and pick the best one available. But and just hope that guy's the right pick at the time. But like you can fail your way into a guy like Monahan, but getting guys up and down the lineup, like you need to have a bunch of different options available to you and hope that they transition properly. And basically Horcoff of the after 15th overall is probably in my top 3 for this guy will play in the NHL. Just because of his size and his speed, and that he's a center. Like you have all 3 of those things, like you're pretty much your ticket's written for you. It's just how good he will be at the NHL level will be determined moving forward.
Yeah, and who are the other 2 that you're thinking these are the guys that will play in the NHL after 15?
Cootes would be one, and also William Moore. Just because of their instinct and in Cootes' case, his just overall motor and drive. I think I don't. How do you say? I do not see any of those guys necessarily being a top line player at the NHL level, but could be a good second line center, second line winger, depending on whatever situation, that kind of thing.
Okay. Is there any other players that the Flames should keep an eye on? I mean, we focused a lot on centers, but is there any other defensemen and goaltending?
Yeah, there is one guy, Hunter Brustavich's brother, who basically is a carbon copy of, and if you want to get another really good defenseman, he's expected to go late in the first round or at least second. If you wanted to add his brother, that would be a good option as well. The goaltenders, frankly, with where the Flames are with Wolf, I don't think that they need to bother using a top 3 round pick on a goalie probably for another 2 or 3 years. Just because they have a really good one right now, so the need for another guy coming is not as high. Sorry about all the coughing. I've had really bad allergies, and
it's okay. Yeah,
the medication are not helping.
Yeah, Henry Brzykowicz, he's got 10 goals, 32 assists, 42 points with the London Knights, 77 penalty minutes. Of course, the Knights win another Memorial Cup. The Florida Panthers of the CHL, the London Knights are, or the Panthers. But so in terms of goaltending too, I mean, the theory has been out there to try to pick a goalie in every draft. I would imagine if they do that, they're going to do that a little bit later. And they've got some pretty. It actually wouldn't surprise me if they don't take a goalie, because not only the Dustin Wolf situation, they've signed a couple of goalies as well. They are actually quite stocked in this position where if they don't take a goalie in this draft, I don't think that hurts them.
Yeah, like they could always sign like a training or development camp invitee if they feel like they need another body, just organizationally. But I don't really view there being much of a rush right now. The Flames, frankly, like there's not really any urgent need when you have a player of Wolf's caliber. You don't need to have like another guy of that caliber coming up the organization for another 2 or 3 years, probably. So, and with like the drastic need for centers right now, that focusing your attention for like the next draft or two on addressing that position specifically, I think is the most important thing. And then you can kind of balance things out after the fact, like in the 27-28 drafts. But for right now, like the Flames seem to be pretty good on the wing, fairly good on the blue line, and in goal, like they're set. So like it would be different if Wolf was like 5 years older than he is, but you're good.
Yeah, you're good for a while there. Let's just quickly look at last year's draft for the Flames. Of course, the big name is Zane Parekh, but they got a lot of other players in this draft that actually turning out really well, or off to good starts anyway. You got, of course, Zane Parekh, who had set the CHL record for points for a defenseman. Matthew Gradin was the CHL Rookie of the Year. I really have liked a lot of what I've seen from Andrew Basha. Of course, he played in the Memorial Cup final with the Medicine Hat Tigers. Jacob Battaglia also had a really good year. Henry Muse has been a find, and Michael's brother Luca is appearing to be a hit as well. And it seems like Hunter Lang is really good as well. So what kind of now looking back a year from last year's draft, what are you thinking about what the Flames did this year? Last year,
on the second day, like as soon as the draft wrapped, I thought that draft was probably the best one that the Flames have had since the 80s. And all of the players that I thought were very good actually exceeded my expectations. So I have no problems with that draft at all. I think that all of Gradin, Battaglia, and Basha make the NHL in the future. I think that they'll all be players. I think Muse probably makes the NHL at some point as well. And Parekh, I think, is a potential star player for the team.
Yeah. So there we go. That's a really good draft. I agree with you. It's one of their best ones in a while. Certainly, kind of looking back, I mean, they've had probably their best in terms of players that ended up kind of developing was probably the 2016 draft, because Tkachuk played. Dubé ended up playing. Adam Fox ended up playing. Matthew Phillips has had a cup of coffee. And then 2015, probably, considering that they only had 5 picks, all 3 of them played in the NHL. I think that's a really good hit there with Anderson, Shillington, and Mangiapane playing. But is there anything else with this draft that we should discuss, or anything else with the Flames that we should be discussing?
I think that the outlook for fans heading into the draft is to expect to get players that will probably play in the NHL, but not necessarily like the star caliber talents. But like if you can find like a second line center, a third line center, a top 4 defenseman, like that would be huge for this team, just as much as anything else. And I think like this is kind of setting the table, and like realistically, like this team over the past year has built in some redundancies in their pro team, like having the ability to move Andersson without really, like you have Perek and Brustevich that are basically ready to take that spot, between the two of them. And you have getting Joel Farabee basically makes Blake Coleman kind of superfluous because they're more or less the same type of player. Like this team could easily transition to moving out some of the slightly older veteran guys to make this team more available for the younger players to come in.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is these last two drafts have been about the depth of the organization. I suspect that the way that things are going, I mean, I know that some people think that Dustin Wolf may prevent this, but I think the reality is I think the next couple of years, I think it's a realistic expectation for the Flames to be in the top 10 of the draft for the next couple of years, just based on the talent that they have, right?
Yeah, like realistically, like Kadri and Huberdeau are going to decline. Coleman and Backlund are going to decline. Like those guys are hitting closer to or over 35. Like those guys are going to not be as good next season as they were this year, and and so on. And with the Flames not really having any offensive talent that like true top 6 forwards that are like ready to go, like this team is going to continue to struggle to score. And as good as Wolf might be, like he can stand on his head, but if this team can't score, you're going to lose a lot of games 2-1.
Yeah, and they did lose a lot of games 2-1 last year.
Yeah, and like basically, I feel that the Flames had as perfect a season that they could have had, under realistic circumstances, and even then, they still missed the playoffs, and like everything kind of went right. If like any of the core players get hurt for an extended period of time, like Kadri, like Huberdeau, like Weegar, like Wolf, even like there's nobody at all to replace any of those people.
Yeah,
and like even Andersson playing like the last month and a half of the season with a broken leg, like just because like there was nobody that was ready to replace him. Like like the Flames they're gonna be worse next year, and like honestly I wouldn't be shocked if they were more towards the bottom 5. Like you see teams like Anaheim and San Jose and Chicago trying to get better so that way they're not perpetually in the basement, and I think you'll start to see those teams get better with the Flames heading back in the other direction.
Yeah, that's kind of I mean, I think if you put the true serum in Craig Conroy, I think that's part of his expectation. Of course, he's going to say on interviews that they want him to be competitive, and I think they want to be competitive. And you look at San Jose last year, the difference from San Jose from one year to another was San Jose wasn't really competitive 2 years ago. They were bad, and the results were bad. This year, the results were bad, but the competitiveness was certainly better. And I think that there are fans. I think for the fans, we keep talking about the conversation around the Flames should tank or not. The reality is the Flames are going to be a bottom team. They don't need to tank, but I think that they need to be competitive in hockey games, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't
yeah. Well, how would you say, like, you can kind of manage your roster or your place in the standings via your roster. So, like, dealing a guy like Andersson, dealing a guy like Coleman, like, especially if they're future heavy, like, you're going to see the team struggle and fall down the standings because those players' contributions just aren't there. And that's a way to like manage the team to be more where you're wanting to be, like in the bottom 5, bottom 10, without like gutting the heart of the team where, the competitive, the trying. Because, like if you just don't have the horses to compete, much like San Jose from this past season, you can still put on a good effort. You're just not going to win very often.
Yeah.
And, that's where like teams like Buffalo kind of get in this, never ending circle, is that they don't ever figure out that you need to have people with that effort level to teach the young guys. And that's why they keep circling the drain.
Yeah, exactly.
And it wasn't until Florida started getting guys that did, like Tkachuk, like Bennett, and Reinhart and that they were able to turn it around. And Edmonton still could use some players like that to get to the next level for them as well. And we'll see.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. I mean, I think it's still, this is still a team game. Yes, you need your superstars and you need your star players, but this is ultimately still a team game, and you need elite players and depth and cap management to win the Stanley Cup. It's not just one thing.
Yeah, well, and how would you say, like, if the NHL was more like the NBA, where like the stars ran the show, like, frankly, the Oilers would have probably won 3 or 4 Stanley Cups by now.
Yeah.
Because of those two. And like if you put those two guys on an average NHL team, they probably win the Stanley Cup. The problem that the Oilers have had is that they're not really an average team besides those two players. Like, they'd probably be in the top 10 of a draft if those two guys aren't on the roster. And like, they're not very good besides the two big guys. And like, Hyman's okay, but like after that, Nugent Hopkins and 40-year-old Corey Perry, like,
Yeah.
like there's not really a lot there to, go, oh, this guy's dangerous. Like, there's not really anything. And like, that's part of the reason why the Oilers did not win last year and did not win this year. And like, unless they can figure a way to get those type of people, like, they're just going to continue to not get there.
Yeah. Yeah, goaltending is an issue in Edmonton. I think everybody will agree with that.
Like, if they had league average goaltending, like if they had league average goaltending, they would have been better. But
I don't think they beat Florida even with better goaltending. I still think Florida wins this series.
Oh, same here. Like, unless like they basically had Bobrovsky or an equivalent, like say Vasilevsky or Shesterkin in that, maybe it might be more of a toss-up. But like, you would need like an elite playoff goaltender to be in that conversation, and Skinner and Pickard are not that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's leave it there, Matt. What does Fireside Chat have coming up for the next little while here as we hit the kind of the core of the offseason? We've got the draft and we've got free agency coming on July the 1st. I suspect that this is going to be where most of the significant news of the Calgary Flames happens. What do you have coming
up? On Sunday next week, if I can stop coughing by then, we will be having our draft recap show and like summer preview. And then once the development camp gets going, I will definitely try to be there with Dan to profile all the new guys plus all the old guys from last year and the year before, and give breakdowns on who they are, how they're doing, and all that fun stuff.
All right. And where do we find you?
At firesidechat.ca and all of the normal places that you go, YouTube, etc.
Wherever you can find podcasts, as Dan says.
Yes, exactly.
For us, we're of course, we got this. We'll I'm kind of doing this a little bit on the fly in terms of what we'll figure out. So kind of stay tuned to us. You can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks. As far as the individuals, you can follow Sean at BeardyCanuck03, Tyler TNOBLE, Chris is Schneids SCHNEIDZ, Devin is D Holmes Smith at Instagram. I am TVOLE on all social media. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.